Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and today I'm going to give you two key ingredients to having a championship mentality. Of course, we've got to go over the very latest in D1 college softball, and I'll also have something at the very end just for the parents. So without further ado, let's get it started. Hey guys, welcome once again to the show. I am excited to jump right in head first with the championship mentality conversation. And I've been wanting to talk about this for a little bit. Just what does it take to have that championship pedigree? What's required of you to be able to go the distance, so to speak, with your teams? And as I was considering like what to share with you guys, I kind of have a lot of different ingredients, like, so to speak, that I can bake into that. But I've settled on two very key ingredients for me with the teams that I've gotten the opportunity to coach. And the number one ingredient, in my opinion, is trust. Of course, this goes like beyond just the talent level and things like that. Okay, fine, you got a talented team, but how can you really take that talented team over the hump? And number one for me is trust. I feel like you have to be able to have trust between your coaching staff, all of them, whether it's one coach, two, three, four, five coaches, whatever. That trust has to be there as a unit on that front. Your teammates, the players themselves, have to be able to trust each other, and then coaches, players have to trust each other as well, right? And because here's what I do know about any relationship, right? Trust and belief in one another, that honesty, that connection, that way, it has to be a driving force for you, and it's one that is imperative for the relationship to last long, right? You talk about consistency and whether it's a marriage or dating or whatever, like you got to be able to have that as a core factor, right? And same thing on the ball field for us, softball, baseball, whatever sport you may be into. When you're involved in a team sport where honestly you're not the only one that can affect the outcome, trust has got to be part of it. And I think you find that belief in each other at practice. You find that when you're able to connect off the ball field as well. I talked about this before on the show. I talked about this on the before on the show, where I like for my players to see each other in the t-shirt and blue jeans. Like just this week, I didn't do a normal practice on Tuesday. We actually, I need to stop joking with my players. Like the last tournament actually this is our first tournament of the season, but a week or so ago, whatever it was, week and a half ago, we had our tournament. We won the tournament. It was awesome, and I was like, hey, we'll see each other in 9 days or 10 days. Um, you know, we got practice basically, right? It's like, oh, maybe we should go bowling. I just threw that out there or something. Somebody said something. I can't remember how it went, but the point is that I joked about it. Like, oh yeah, we should do that. And I'm like, really? Like we? So I'm like, fine, whatever. We'll go bowling. So anyway, my point is that we were in plain clothes, right? Tuesday for bowling, and it was 2 hours of just connecting, and it wasn't a lot of time on cell phones. It wasn't a lot of time to yourself. It's you're bowling, you're cheering each other on. Of course, this is a very casual sport that none of us are really very good at, honestly. And but it was fun. It was a fun time together as a family, and again, the conversations that may or may not have been had within those couple of hours. One, you're not going to have those conversations on the ball field, probably, because it's not the right setting to have them necessarily. But because you get to know each other a little bit better, you get to learn each other's just lives, what's going on right now outside of ball and school and whatnot. It's a bond that you begin to develop with your teammates, and I think that's important. And so when you trust a person beyond just their ability to play a game of softball or baseball, to me that goes a really long way. But when you do step on the field, like you begin to really feel really good about who they are off the field, which is awesome. But now you see, okay, I'm good, she's good, we're good, right? And you begin to find out certain things about each other that you can mesh together. But then there's the things that you don't feel good about that person, but you can deal with them and you can overcome them because there's a genuine trust and a bond there. So again, that would be number one for me. Number two, again, I could probably give you 10 things, but number two is confidence. And again, just as that trust is like a circle, a triangle, whatever, between the coaches and the coaches and the players and the players, and then coaches and player relationship, the same thing with confidence. You got to have that confidence that your coach is going to do what's best for the team and put the team in the best position to compete, and win games at a high level if that's what the goal is, right, for your program. And the same thing with your teammates, man. You got to be able to trust your teammates, obviously, but you got to have that confidence in them, and hopefully, trusting them gives you the confidence that you need to have within them, right? Take that a step further, though. You got to have trust in yourself, and you also got to have confidence in yourself. And honestly, that sometimes can be the biggest battle on the field for any of us, is that, do I trust my own abilities? Do I have full confidence in myself to do my job? Right? You may trust her to do hers, but do you truly trust you to do yours? Do you have the confidence in yourself to handle whatever's thrown at you? So again, those are my two main ingredients on that front. I know that there are others out there that I even wrestled with that I'll kind of table for now, and maybe reshare those at a later show. But trust and confidence are big. If you got those, I think you can really give yourselves a good shot as a team to not only connect, but to be able to have the chemistry and to be able to have the wherewithal to know, hey, where are each other's blind spots, and how do we make sure that the opponents can attack those on a higher level. So there's that championship mentality, what that looks like, what's required of you. Let's pivot for a second to the LSU Ole Miss series this past weekend. So, of course, my Tigers, man, we dropped 2 of 3 to Ole Miss, and what a series it was. I got some major takeaways. I was able to go out. I think I told you guys last show that I was heading out to Baton Rouge to support Taylor Pleasance and the LSU Tigers. And I'll tell you, man, first of all, shout out to Tiger Park. Like, everything about it, incredible. I'd already been to a game out there a few years ago back in the Supers against Florida State. But man, being there for 3 straight days, it felt like, first of all, it felt like home away from home. And I took my wife and daughter out there with me, and it was just an incredible atmosphere. So, Tiger Park, shout out to everybody there that made it what it was. What a weekend! Such a fun atmosphere, such a fun environment. Even though we dropped the back 2 games of the series, like, still incredible, still incredible. So but I do have some takeaways though about the game itself. One of them, bottom line for LSU, the offense was stagnant. We scored 7 runs throughout the entirety of the series, and I think at least 2 of those were unearned. I think that we had there was a pass ball in game 3, and then game 1 there was an error by the shortstop, Ryan Starr for Ole Miss, that led to an early run there. So again, my point is that the offense just wasn't what it had been throughout the course of that 24-0 stretch, and that's okay. That's okay. You know what I mean? And so they'll bounce back. I feel good about that. Another major takeaway, man. I think that LSU defensively kept Ole Miss at bay for 13 out of the 14 innings to start the series off. So the first 2 games, I thought the defense was amazing. And then really at the back end of game 2, Ole Miss found a creak in the door, and they took full advantage of it. And I thought they rode that big momentum at the end of game 2, because to me, they stole game 2 from LSU. And they rode that momentum into game 3 and just absolutely dominated game 3, statistically across the board on offense. And so that's what that looks like. I think that's what it looks like from team perspective. Well, I tell you, man, if you don't know the name Jayla Lassiter, you're going to find out real soon. First of all, she's going to be on the show pretty soon. I'm excited about that. But Jayla Lassiter, she is the leadoff hitter for Ole Miss. And she torched the Tigers, man. I hate to say it, but she did it. And, obviously I'm not an Ole Miss fan, but got some SEC love for Jayla. and what the Rebels were able to do over the weekend, because they definitely made me a believer in what's possible for them. Their pitching staff, mad props to them. But man, Jayla, at one point it felt like she was freaking 8 for 8. I don't know what she was, but like she could not be stopped. I mean, her on base percentage had to be above 800. Had to be. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But she was just off the charts, great all series. It was like every time she came up to bat, you knew she was getting on base. And mind you, LSU's pitching staff, right? Chafin, Sidney Berzon, Kelly Lynch, right? Like these are great pitchers, right? No doubt about it. And it was like it didn't matter. And I'm watching the scoreboard every at bat, and I don't know how often it happened, but it felt like the majority of the time, Jayla was working 2-0 counts, 2-1 counts, 3-1 counts, full counts, and the deeper it got into the count, the more the advantage went to her in that scenario. And so she was on a tear, and I won't say she single-handedly beat the Tigers, because there were other contributors as well, but she was involved all around, her base running, the whole nine. So she was fantastic. And one more takeaway I'll say on that series is that you know it was really good to be able to have a conversation with Taylor Pleasance post game of Game 3, and one thing she told me just straight up was that you know we just got to regain that confidence, because I asked them like what how do you guys regroup from here, before you go into another weekend series against a very tough Mizzou team. And so regaining that confidence while also understanding that, okay, fine, we're not invincible. Like, we get that now. We got to do more than just show up, because when they were 24-0, it was like you couldn't be beaten. And, during that 24-0 stretch for LSU, there were multiple games where they were making sixth inning comebacks, late game comebacks. And so, you kind of felt like, we're good. We're the only team that can beat ourselves. And honestly, I still feel that way. You know, even after Ole Miss kind of made me a believer, I still feel that LSU beat itself in Game 2, and had that not taken place, anything is possible for Game 3. You know what I mean? I thought, again, even though Ole Miss's offense was cooking in Game 3, again, give them credit, but I still feel like LSU had a shot to win that series, and it beat itself on that front. So I love the slogan, though, man. I love the slogan, and I'll tell you, "Deal us in" is such a beautiful just mantra for this group. As I've said before, like Taylor Pleasance rather said on the show, like they play cards and whatnot, but I know for sure that this team is not going to back down from anybody, and so I'm excited for what's coming down the road for the Tigers. So that's my Tiger tidbit at the moment for you guys. And then, of course, on Tuesday, after the conclusion of that series, came the new rankings, and D1 softball dropped my Tigers 3 spots from number 2 to number 5. So right now we got Oklahoma still at number 1. Texas slid back up to number 2. Oklahoma State at number 3. Stanford at number 4. Even though Stanford has about 4 or 5 losses, if you look at it, they're high quality losses, and that's what I would say. That would be my argument for Stanford to be above LSU at the moment, is that even though Stanford has 5, LSU has 2. Our 2 losses came against an unranked Ole Miss team again, and now I can't. I mean, Ole Miss is still not ranked, but still, that's what it came to. Whereas I think Stanford lost to their worst loss may have been to Kentucky. I think, right? So again, Stanford deserves to be above LSU in that regard. I'm not going to sugarcoat that on that front. So, LSU is still top 5 on that front. But man, can we talk about the fact that though the Big 12 conference has the top 3 spots in the rankings? That is wild. I don't know if that's ever happened before or not, but that's impressive. Of course, they haven't played each other yet. So I'm sure they'll tear each other down at some point. But you got Oklahoma, Texas, and Oklahoma State sitting at 1, 2, and 3. So, as much as I want to talk about the SEC, right now it's all Big 12 conference. And I think until they play each other, they're probably going to be sitting at the top 3 for a minute. I don't know. I know Houston is also in that conference. I think Baylor pulled off the upset last season against Oklahoma in that Oklahoma Baylor series. So I know anything is possible still, but those are some dang good teams right there. Of course, you got Duke, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, other schools right there in the mix there in the top 10. So I'm excited still about this season after week 6. And boy, do we have a lot of softball left. Get involved, y'all. Turn on the TV because it's happening. This game is growing like nobody's business. And you need to ride that wave. Go to some games. Go support some of these teams. And even if you're not going to Division 1 game, man, go support the game itself. Like it's an awesome game, y'all. Like seriously. So if you play the game, go see the game. Go see a better way to play the game. And so if it's nothing else, like go study it because I took so many. I didn't take physical notes while I was at the LSU series, but man, I took so many mental notes. It wasn't even funny. Like just watching the coaching battles back and forth. When to pull a pitcher, when not. Just kind of how that was able, how that was able to unfold in a lot of different ways. I mean, you saw so many different strategies come out of it, in that LSU Ole Miss series. And so, I know here in Georgia, Alabama came to town, and Alabama was able to win the third game of that series after some tough battles in games 1 and 2 as well. So again, a lot of good softball going on. Go check it out. But in the quick second, I'm gonna give you guys a brief break here, and I'm gonna jump back on and talk a little bit more just about the college softball world, and I'll also jump into the open book segment too. So give me one quick second. We'll take a break, and I'll be right back. Okay, guys, welcome back to the show once again. So I want to talk about, just real quick before I jump into the open book segment, I want to talk about the behind the scenes that I saw over the weekend of college softball. I thought it was a really unique experience to kind of see what happened. I wasn't like stalking anybody, so don't take that from the conversation. But it just so happened that my family and I shared a hotel with the Ole Miss softball team. And so game 1, LSU takes game 1 last Saturday, and so the aura around the hotel once we got back, because it was a 12 o'clock game because of the rain that was coming in potentially later in the evening, and so the aura around it, just you could kind of see, just they were mild mannered, they weren't sad looking. Ole Miss players were not sad looking or whatever. They were just chill, like it's time to regroup, whatever. And then after game 2, it was a little bit more chatter, a little bit loud or whatever, because they'd won game 2 or whatever. In game 3, I think they went straight back to Oxford. But what I witnessed though prior to game 3, so this was Monday during the day, because the game wasn't until 6 p.m. that night. You had coaches strategizing in the lobby. You had players, laptops, jackets on, blankets around them, whatever, in the lobby on the laptops doing homework, right? You had, fun times, of course, with pizza and whatnot after the big win, game 2, because again, they'd taken the number 2 team in the country. They weren't overly loud or anything like that, but it was a good, mild celebration, so to speak. And I say all that to say that for those of you trying to go play at the next level, whether it be at the Division 1 level or not, it remains the same. Like, you got to travel to other places. And so I ask you the rhetorical question, are you ready for that? Are you ready for the extended weekends in a hotel room, in a confined space that's not your own, sharing it with other teammates, having to do homework in the lobby, eating pizza, for dinner, when you probably prefer something else maybe, right? Are you okay with that? Are you okay? Because Oxford to Baton Rouge is about a 5 hour, normal drive, so maybe even a little bit longer on a bus, right? Are you okay with the travel of that, right? So I think it's important to ask yourself as you begin to progress in this game, because it's fun. It's a fun, amazing game to be a part of, but there is a grind that comes with it that everybody doesn't get to see, right? And so I just thought it was really unique that I kind of got to see that firsthand, so to speak. But because we just happened to share a hotel room with a team that's in town at the time, and so again, just make sure that as you begin to prep for the next level, seniors, juniors in high school, sophomores, even, that you're ready for that part of the game as well. So anyway, that's food for thought for what it's worth. All right, let's jump into our open book segment here. And this first question is from Gracie Maddox, who was on the show back in season 2. And I just got off the phone with her actually before recording the show, and she's like, "You better have my question on this episode." So here goes nothing. I still don't know my answer to this question yet, so I'm going to shoot off the hip on this one. But Gracie asks here, do you prefer the bomb sound off the bat of one of your players or a strike three sound of the mitt by one of your pitchers? So do you prefer the sound of a home run or prefer the sound of a strikeout of one of your pitchers? And really, this is a tough one. She'd sent me a video, an older clip of about 4 years ago of her smacking the crap out of a ball over the fence of the left field wall, and the sound of her bat was like chef's kiss type stuff, right? And I told her, I'm like, listen, you got to remember now, I was a pitcher, and for me, I love the sound of me popping my catcher's mitt, swinging a miss at this guy, having him walk back to his dugout, wondering what the heck just happened. You know what I mean? So I think my answer is still going to stay with the sound of the pop of the mitt, genuinely. Although I do love the sound, the crack of the bat of a home run. There's nothing like it. But man, just striking a guy out, three pitches is a lot to swing and a miss, in my opinion. And so I just know that the chess game that I love to play as a pitcher and getting a guy's head, because I'm a smaller framed guy, and a lot of folks, you wouldn't anticipate me being the one to mow a guy down or what have you. So I think that that's still very much my favorite sound of the game so far, at least out of those two options. So there's your answer, Gracie. All right, so next question here is from Erica C. And she asks, what's your go-to bunt coverage defense? So good question, Erica. So of course, nobody on, nobody out. I'm gonna go ahead and crash my corners in on that one, especially if my corners are, again, now I say crash the corners. It obviously depends on personnel, and the personnel that I have right now that I've had traditionally is where corners are solid enough to crash, second baseman solid enough to cheat a little bit, come over whatever, and take that at first base. We're also going to probably crash the corners again on, even if we have a runner on first base right there, because my shortstop is going to come over and cover second base. Second baseman's still going to go cover first, and my left fielder is going to be crashing in if and just in case my third baseman can't get back to third in time after crashing. So, that's kind of my go-to. I know a lot of folks do the shotgun with the second baseman where they'll bring her up heavy, almost neck and neck with the pitcher, and the first baseman will take a few steps back behind the bag to be able to have a little bit more room for error there to cover that, to cover to her right a little bit more. It again just depends on the personnel, but I'm always going to crash those corners and put a little bit more pressure on that batter to give me a good bunt down the line, because honestly, that's what we're trying to take away, is just that really good bunt down the line, especially if there's some speed involved with that batter too. So again, maybe I'm tipping my hand to some of my opponents don't really care, but either way, that's my go-to bunt defense. So next and last question here before the break is, how do you balance being a coach and friend? And this question is from Jamie S. And Jamie, I think that's a very good question, and I think it's one that warrants a lot more time than I want to spend on it. But to give you a nutshell answer on that one is, I want to be a friend first, and I want to be that first because I know that that's not always the approach that every coach has. in my players' lives, right? In school ball, a lot of times it's coach first, friend second, or not friend at all, even. And because I'm in the travel ball world and I try to be um, just a little bit against the grain, I would say a little bit different in terms of the way that I coach, which can be tough sometimes, actually, to be able to balance coach and friend. But I do understand that dynamic is important to, to be able to have good quality phone conversations with my players if needed, if they need something from me, or to be able to have a lunch meeting with them, or whatever that may be. You know what I mean? I need to be that friend for them at times. But they also understand that dynamic, and I've made that very clear to all of my players. Like once we're between the lines, like nothing's personal about our strategy, so to speak. So I've been, I've had to bench players before that I'm very, very close to, right? But I don't take it personally. And, I would hope that my players don't ever take that personally either, right? So again, there's a balance there, Jamie, that comes with that. And I think it's important to make that clear to your players. But also, sometimes when you just got to be their friend and you just got to be a listening ear to their problems or to, whatever the case may be. Like if you just need to give advice or what have you, like I think it's just that's important. And you got to take your coaching hat off for a bit and not worry about the X's and O's of the game or whatever. Like bump the lineup, like bump the defensive alignment. All that can wait. Sometimes you just need to be a friend. And then again, like I said, on the flip side of that, sometimes you got to be their coach, and you gotta rip 'em a new one at times. Quick story time. Gracie Maddox, who asked the first question of the segment, right? We've spent plenty of hours on the phone talking about life and talking through life and just, muscling through different challenges and obstacles that she's faced while she was playing, for our Elite Diamond softball program and even since she's graduated, gone on to play college ball and whatnot. But I'll never forget our next to last tournament. We're at the World Series down in Vieira, Florida. She's probably chuckling right now listening to this part of the show because she knows where I'm going. But there was a moment in I think our very last game of the World Series down there in Vieira. Beautiful, beautiful site by the way. USSSA Pride. They great job with that facility. Um, but very very last game, it's a tight game against the Stars national team out of a different state. And we had them dead to rights. 2 outs. We're up by a run, very last inning. And anyway, long story short, they go on to win it in extra innings. But before that, though, earlier in the game, Gracie, she was not feeling it confidence wise. And again, kind of going back to that championship pedigree, right? Confidence is an important key for me. And she wasn't feeling it that at bat. And I could tell throughout the at bat that she wasn't totally feeling it. And I think she ended up popping out to the first base out or even striking out. I can't recall, which are two things that she really does. It's just not really in her DNA to do that. And I could tell she was out of sorts mentally. And so I remember Maddie Speaks, who has also been on the show. She was on third base at the time. And I think I said, hey, if she strikes out right here, if she gets out right here, I need you to go back to the dugout because our dugout was on the first base side. So we had to walk across the field. I said, if she strikes out right here, I need you to go talk to her. And I think I said it like that. And Matt's like, okay, I got you. And I kid you guys not. I'm pretty sure either A, I beat Maddie to the dugout across the field, or before Maddie could even say anything, I was already down Gracie's throat about it. And this is the first time I think I'd ever really yelled at Gracie like that. And I don't really even yell like that anyway. But I ripped her a new one, and I basically said I needed her to compete, for lack of a better term. Okay, I needed her to compete at a higher level, on the level that I know she can compete at. And that moment, I felt like I needed to give her that tough love, and I felt like everybody else around her needed to hear that from me as well to her. Not that she's a golden child by any means, but like she'd never had that from me. I've always kind of kept my cool, right? But she's also rarely ever given me a reason to lose it. You know what I mean? And so again, my point is to beat a dead horse. Like sometimes you got to put your coaching hat on and be that coach in that moment. Um, but also at the end of that tournament, we're both in tears because we know it's the end of her time, with the program, right? So again, tough love in that very moment, but in the grand scheme of life, I'll be a friend for life on that front. And I think that's the important thing is that's why that balance is so key. And I don't think I have the true recipe to that at all. I mean, I'm still a young coach myself. Who am I kidding? And so I know that I'm still finding out what that looks like. But at least as a 28-year-old coach, I know for sure that I've respected the coaches who have continue to be in my life beyond the field. And so I know I always want to be that for my players too. So anyway, let's take another break, guys. I'm gonna jump into something here for the parents that I also think is good for coaches and players to hear as well. But this will be specifically for you parents. Then we'll jump into our thought you should know moment before we wrap up the show. So give me just a quick second. We'll take one more break. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the show one last time. So, like I said, this one right here is for the parents specifically, but I want everybody to hear it because I think it could resonate for you as players and as coaches as well. Coaches, players, you may roll your eyes at it and be like, yep, I totally understand where you're coming from. And parents may roll their eyes for the opposite reason and be like, that's not me. So, anyway, what I'll say is, because I've seen it happen here, and it's gotten a little bit closer to me than I expected to. But I've seen it even happen with just with one of the teams that are in my program. That parents sometimes you can be a little too hard on your girls or guys even, but specifically talking on the softball side, you can be too hard on your daughters. And so my encouragement to you parents is that you resist the urge to be the additional coach beyond the coach that they already get it from, right? Because typically the players are going to get it, so to speak, an earful from their coaching staff, right? And it may not be abrasive, it just may mean they're getting what they need to get from the coaches because the coaches are coaching, right? And so it might be a post-game talk, it might be an in-between innings talk, but rest assured, as long as hopefully you trust what the coaches are doing for your kid, you should trust that they're getting the instruction that they need from their coaching staff. That doesn't mean you can't come behind and be mom or dad. I'm not saying don't be mom or dad or whatever. What I'm saying though is I'm urging and encouraging you to create a positive and just fun atmosphere and environment for your kid to play the game, right? Because at the end of the day, that is what it is, right? It is a game, Game. We don't really ever, when we talk about our kids when they're toddlers and babies playing a game, right? It's supposed to be fun, right? And sometimes when as parents we push harder than we need to push, it gets unfun for our kids. And I think some signs of our kids being, pushed too hard is when they begin to look unhappy, overstressed, disinterested. Those are key signs, in my opinion, where your daughter's she's burnt out, and maybe she doesn't need to continue, or maybe you need to dial it back a little bit. Maybe she can continue if you dial it back, or if we dial it back, right? Because that'd be coaches too. Maybe sometimes we can be too much. And so, and again, I say this got close to me because there's this player, man. I won't mention her name, but we've had some really good conversations, and unfortunately, I feel like parents have been too much, and so she's lost her love for the game, and it breaks my heart because I know the caliber of player that she is, and she hasn't performed up to that standard because virtually she just doesn't want to be out there. And so it's tough. It's tough pill to swallow. It's tough to watch. And so I would say, guys and gals, take a look at your kids and make sure that the culture and environment that you have for them on the ride to, on the ride from, and everything in between is an encouraging environment for them. Not that you can't be critical, but just understand when you're overdoing it. Understand when their potential lackadaisical actions are because of you, right? Make sure that when they begin to do things potentially out of spite for you, it's time to dial it back. It's beyond time to dial it back as a parent. And hate to get so serious on the show, but it's an important thing. And parents, I think at the end of the day, sometimes we need that reminder. And so hopefully this right here can be that reminder for you in a very passive way, so that for you and your children, like you can go be the best version that you need to be for you and for your kids. Because as much as we talk about players going out being the best versions of themselves, you got to be that for you. I was watching a parent from LSU talk to one of the LSU players who she just had a tough series and against Ole Miss, and it was words of affirmation. It was positive encouragement, right? After she sat long face, but dad was providing the words that she needed to hear in that moment. And I thought it was a beautiful thing. And so I think we can all take a lesson from the last few minutes of me talking about that, as adults. As much as we want our kids to be the best versions of themselves, which I think is important, on the ball field, we also got to make sure we're being what we need to be for our kids to be the best versions of themselves by helping their environment be not warm and fuzzy and comfy, but it's one that they can thrive in as well. So I'm leaving you guys with that. And with that being said, I'm jumping into our thought you should know moment, because I think for us, and this even kind of goes back to what I was just saying for the parents there. I think for us, my thought you should know moment today is very simple. Have patience. Trust the process. Because at the end of the day, the waiting for whatever you want isn't necessarily a punishment. It's preparation, right? And so there's things in our lives that are going to require a little bit more time than others, but that's okay, right? Because that door is going to open for you, but just understand that the time that it's taken for that door to open, you're being prepped for it, right? And I look at this from just even from a business standpoint for some of you adults out there. You think about your business, for example, if you're an entrepreneur, like there was a time, I'm sure, for your practice where you first opened up your business, you weren't making a whole bunch of money. And now you look now, you're making good money or whatever. But I'm sure there was a time where you probably couldn't handle the amount of money that you make right now, right? You might have blown it all. And so I think whatever you believe in, if it's God, if it's the universe, whatever, it God's working, right? Give him time, have patience with the process, and don't give up on your dreams while you're doing that. So that's my thought you should know moment for today, guys. I hope that resonates with you in some capacity. And if it doesn't today, maybe it will in the future. And if it doesn't today, or it doesn't resonate for you in the future, then pass this message along to somebody else, so that it can resonate for them. Because my hope is that we're all locking arms together and just elevating each other as we live this thing called life. So, with that being said, I'm gonna sign this show off like we always do. So please, guys, let everything you do be done in love, because that is truly what makes the world go round. Thank you all so much for joining once again. I am 100% committed to bringing a great show to you guys each and every single week. I always appreciate your feedback. Much love to you all, and we'll catch you next time.